Okay, so um, I want to go ahead and move on to the next question, which is a question that I do get very often, and that is why so many religions in which to choose from. So we have so many books to choose from. You know, we have the Bible, we
Mhm.
have the Mormon book, the Quran, or the Quran, the Watchtower, and so many churches to choose from. I mean,
Mhm.
there's so many churches you can turn a corner and there's a different church here
Right. Yeah.
in each block. So how do you know which one
To pick or
to pick?
choose.
Yeah, which one's the real one, or
Yeah.
which one do you
So I think we approach
follow?
this question the same way we would approach as if we were searching for a wife or searching for a husband. Or oftentimes, I find the way people approach this subject is the same way they would approach shopping for a dress. So when we're talking about, say, a spouse, you're going to do your research, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
going to shop around. You may date this guy, you may date that guy, and then, well, let me study you, let me learn a little more about you, and let me pick. Or if you're looking for a dress, well, I gotta, there's many dresses in many different stores, and which dress you pick really doesn't really make a difference. It's the dress that you feel is a fit for you.
Right.
Makes perfect sense when you're shopping for a dress. So then people say, you know what, it's time to start thinking about religion. I have a family. And they take that same approach to shopping for religion, that I'm going to do my research and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to find something that I feel fits me. But now, nowhere in that conversation did we ever talk about what's right. When you're looking for a
Right.
dress, it's not right and wrong. It's about what suits me, what I feel good in, what I look good in. Of course, a woman thinking about a dress. And it's amazing how no one thinks twice about taking that same approach. So you'll sit down with someone, you said people have told you that, and they'll tell you exactly that. So I'm kind of shopping around. Some even use
Mm-hmm.
that term, shopping around, looking for a church. Amy, there's a lot of churches in San Angelo,
This one
and
has a youth program. This one
yeah,
doesn't.
so I'm
Yeah.
not sure which one I'm going to go with. And then, they're different religions, and so I'm not partial, and so I'm just kind of looking around. Again, there's no subject of who's right and who's wrong. It's impartial. It's going to be what suits that person and what feels good to them, and that is the completely wrong way to deal with religion. It's not shopping for a dress, and it's not looking for a husband or a wife. It's looking for something that is real and something that truth is based upon. So that's the first way you have to change your mindset. So the first thing these people have to be able to do is admit that there's a right and there's a wrong. It makes a search harder
Right.
because now the stakes are higher. It doesn't matter what I pick as long as I pick something. No, you could actually pick wrong. And so it's very important that we pick right. So the testimony of the Christian has always been, I once was blind, but now I see. I was lost, but now I'm found. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. That's the testimony of the Christian. The testimony of the Christian is not, I threw the dice and I went to the right church. I found the right church. I found the right religion for me. That's not what we sing. We don't sing, I found the right church. I found what suited me the best. There's no song I've ever heard in a Christian church that sounds like that. The song that we all sing is Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was blind, but now I see. I was lost, but now I'm found. Everybody knows that song. That song is singing that our eyes were open, that we were able to see something we never saw before. And that song also testifies the admission on our part that we were lost. It's not about that we found. There's no story in Christianity that we found Christianity. There's no story in the Bible that says people found religion. The story of Christianity and the Bible, which all other religions, by the way, are based. The Quran, the Mormon book, Jehovah, all of them are based off of the Bible, have similarities. They all start with Abraham as the father of faith, and then they branch out the Quran with Ishmael, but they all have the Bible as their base. So the Bible as the base is that God has pursued us. He found us. We didn't find him. We didn't select him. He selected us. So when you're dealing with someone that says, I'm kind of looking and searching and I'm going to select, there's already something that's off there, something that's wrong, something that doesn't sound like Christianity. That doesn't sound like the Bible. And it sounds like in the end, you're just going to pick a religion in a church that suits you. Right. And for most people saying, what's wrong with that? It's not the Christianity or it's not the religion of the Bible. And so also when searching for the truth, you always want to go back to the origin. So if you're going to do any research on anything, who is the original? Who is the original rapper? And then you begin to do a documentary on rap. But you're going to go back to the old guys, right? If you're going to do a documentary on rock and roll, you're going to go all the way back to. You're not going to start with the people today. You're going to go back further and maybe work your way up towards them, but you would never start with today. You're not going to do a documentary on rap and start with Kanye, which not that he's considered more soul, right? I think than rap, but still, you would never start off with that. You're going to go back to the origins. And so, when you're looking at God, when you're looking at religion, you're starting with the Bible. And so it is the oldest book. We looked at that earlier. It's 66 books total, and it was written over a span of 15 years. And so we're going to start with the original. And so people say there's so many religions. Well, that's true. But when did those religions start? And who were they started by? We have Christianity that was left to us through the Bible, through Jesus. Now, you can debate whether he was God or not, but he's definitely a historical figure that any historian will tell you Jesus of Nazareth existed and he was crucified and he did go before Pontius Pilate. And so Jesus is a historical figure that did start a movement, and that religion was started in 33 AD, which is when Jesus died. He was crucified at 33 years old. What's interesting is that time was split by this person. So whoever he was, time was split by him. We have before Christ, and we have AD, Anno Domini, which is Latin for after Christ. We know that today in schools they've changed that, right? It's BCE, it's before the Common Era. But it's the same answer. So I asked a very educated woman who's a teacher and asked her, okay, BCE, so what's BCE? She said, well, that's before the Common Era. So I didn't bring up, well, it used to be before Christ, but now it's before the Common Era. So I said, okay, before the Common Era. I said, what separates the Common Era and after? And she said, the birth of Jesus. So it doesn't change anything, whether you're going to say before Christ or after Christ, and you don't want to use that. If you research, all you Google enthusiasts, you could even Google, when did BCE begin? It began before the Common Era, was before the birth of Christ, and anything after the birth of Jesus is the Common Era. But no one sits back to think, who was this Jesus that even secularists, atheists, Buddhists, people in Russia, people in Argentina, people all over the world, we're all 2023 AD, no matter where you live in the world, well, yeah, but that's BCE, and that's today we're in the Common Era. Okay, we're in the Common Era. We're not going to say after Christ. When did the Common Era start? And you're going to get a big pause. When did the Common Era start? Well, it started at 0 AD. What preempted 0 AD? Some will actually say, I don't know. But for those that will do the research, it will tell them what preempted the Common Era was the birth of Jesus. Any historian will say the day that this individual, whoever he was, God or not, but the day that Jesus was born, the Common Era started. And so we go all the way back to the beginning. So you look at the Book of Mormon. People say so many books. The Book of Mormon, most people have no idea when that religion started. It started in 1830. Well, we're in 2023. The Christianity was left by Jesus in 33 AD. So 1,800 years after Christianity started by Jesus, A man by the name of Joseph Smith started a new religion, and many people believe that's a good religion to follow. Again, if you're going to do any documentary on rap, rock and roll, or anything, you would go back to the original and you would start from there. People say, today I'm looking for religion. Well, what religion did you find? I think I'm going to be Mormon. Mormon. And when did that start? Some of them will actually tell you they don't know. But maybe you got one or two that did the research. Oh, that started in 1830. So you're going to follow a religion that was started almost 2,000 years after Christianity. Now, here's the catch. Joseph Smith was a Christian. And so he was a Christian, a disenchanted Christian. So you're following someone that will admittedly confess, I was a Christian, I wasn't happy with it, so I started my own religion. And that's the religion you're choosing to follow? And so Joseph Smith says that he was disenchanted with the church and that he went into the woods and he was praying. He was a Christian. And that an angel appeared to him. The angel's name was Moroni, and told him that you're right. All the churches that you visited are imperfect. They're all flawed. And I want you to start a new religion. And he started the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. And he says these 2 testaments of stone were given to him. Of course, they've never found those. But the point is that the Bible, which was already written, plainly tells you that the church is imperfect. All the flaws of the church are outlined. Now you think if man had written the Bible, we would have hid those flaws. One of the greatest evidences that the Bible is a divine work is that the flaws are in there. If I was to write a book about me, I would make myself look in the best light. I might put a couple of things in, but I'm going to look best I can. The Bible has in there the flaws. If you've read the New Testament, I'm sure you have, sometimes like, oh my gosh, this is drama. Why would God put that? Because God wants us to know the church is flawed, but it is still God's greatest hope for planet Earth. So for a man to say that he went into the woods and God said, oh, you're so right, the church is flawed. Oh, it's a mess. You need to start a new one, goes back against the premise of the Bible that God already told us. And then another scripture, because God knew that man would do this, he said in the Revelations at the end, anyone who adds to this book or anyone who takes away, that he will be taken out of God's book of life. In other words, don't touch this. And so it's interesting that the Mormon book says a new revelation of Jesus Christ. So what they say is we just added on. We just changed some things. We just modified things. You look at Episcopalians, which is from the Church of England. So again, everything goes back to the origin. Originally, it was Christian. So King Henry VIII was a Christian, and he wanted to divorce his wife. And at that time, the Church of Rome, the Catholic Church, ruled the world. And it was the Church of Rome or nothing else. And he petitioned to the Pope to be able to divorce his wife. And the Pope told him, no, you can't divorce your wife. And he said, well, I'm the King of England. I can do what I want. And so he took himself out of the Catholic Church. And he said, I'll start my own religion. And in my religion, you'll be able to divorce. So he started the Church of England. So now we have another religion. Why so many religions? We have now another religion started by a man because he was confronted with his sins and he didn't want to be confronted with those, and he wanted to do what he wanted to do. So he started the Church of England. He divorced his wife, and then he had one of his other wives murdered. And so there you go. That's the Church of England. And people say, I want to be part of that. And in the United States, it's not called the Church of England. It's called the Anglican Church, Presbyterian. And so, but again, people say, well, what are you? Well, I'm Anglican. So you're following in a church that was started by a man who was originally Christian, was told something he couldn't do, started his own, did what he wanted to, had his other, and this is all history. I'm not making this up. Anybody can research this, murdered his wife. That's the religion that you're into. Again, so why so many religions? You look at the Jehovah's Witnesses, started by Charles Taze Russell. That was started in 1879. Interesting, very close to when Joseph Smith started the Mormon Church. So you'll never believe this, but Charles Russell was a Christian too. So he was also a professed Christian, and he became disenfranchised with the church and started his own religion, the Watchtower, the Jehovah's Witnesses. And so they started their own book. They have their own teachings. Of course, they'll always say based off of the Bible, right? But just variations as Charles Russell thought they should be changed. So again, another religion started by man in 1879. So almost the year 1900. That's not too long ago. So you got to answer, how was humanity saved? How were humans finding the way? How did we have a relationship with God before Joseph Smith, before the King of England, before Charles Russell, who came with their religions that they created? What did we do between 33 AD and 1800 AD? That's 1,800 years. What were we doing to be saved? What were we doing to be in a relationship with God? Were we lost for 1,800 years? Absolutely not. People have a relationship with God, but it's so why so many religions? Why so many different books? Because of men. Men have egos, and they do not like to be confronted, and so most men will just leave a church. Most men will just renounce religion. But you have a few men who are probably super egomaniacs who say, I will start my own religion. And so they have. And you could go on. You have, people talk a lot about Muslims and the Quran. It's the same year. That book that one's a little older, believe it or not. The Quran was written, anybody could research this, in 609 AD. So this is a little older religion, but the Quran came to be written 600 years. That's a long time. It's still a long time. 600 years after Christianity. You look at Jesus, a historical figure. People say, well, I don't believe, but yet they believe in Alexander the Great. They believe in Socrates. They believe in Plato. These are all people that existed before. People think of Alexander the Great. They never process. I've heard of Alexander the Great. We kind of studied him in school. Oh, yeah? When did he live? I don't know. He lived before Jesus. Before. And there is less documentation on Alexander the Great than Jesus. Socrates, Plato, before. And we barely have any information on these. And the information that we have on Alexander the Great, Socrates, Plato, and these men is minimal. It's just a couple of writings. But yet we've taken those writings, we believed in them, and we've ran with them. And yeah, we teach about Alexander. No, I've never had anyone in all my life say, I don't know if I believe that Alexander the Great existed. I think he's the invention of men. I don't know if I can believe that. But yet Jesus, who the writings of Jesus were not found written centuries later. These are centuries later that men wrote about these men. The writings of Jesus, some of them are as early as 55, 60 AD. The book of Corinthians, one of the earliest books. These books, imagine, so we have now books, historical context, writings that have been written about a human being that existed in history that were written 20 years after him. That's not long at all. So though, in other words, the people that were writing them were the people that were alive that when Jesus was alive. And not only were they written by people that were alive when Jesus was alive, but those books to be canonized in the Bible had to be verified by 3 witnesses. So there are people that complain about different books, the book, Book of Thomas and all these weird books that are not in the Bible. The reason they're not is no one's saying that book wasn't written, but the qualifications to be in the Bible were so strict that it just didn't make it in. No one's saying that it's a false book, but they're just saying the book of Enoch, the book of Thomas, and all these different books. They weren't in the timeline, and they weren't verified by 3 witnesses who knew Jesus. You'll see that every book that's in the Bible was verified by 3 witnesses, and the witnesses that verified them were people who actually knew Jesus. And so Paul has a book in the Bible. The disciples knew Paul and they knew Jesus. And then, of course, you have Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. So all these books in the New Testament were written between 20 to 30 to 40 years in that timeline. So there is no book in all the world that has such a history as the Bible, and as conclusive as the Bible and written by people who actually were alive when Jesus was alive and knew him. The only one, you could say would be the Apostle Paul, because Jesus appeared to him in his resurrected form, but still an appearance of Jesus. And still, for Paul to get his books in the Bible, they had to be approved by James, Peter, and John. And so there's no, so people say, why so many books? Which one do I believe in? What religion should I follow? Well, I would say the original. I would not want to follow anything that someone started because they were disgruntled or they were disenchanted or they didn't agree or they were upset. I would not want to follow a religion that a man has come up with. And people say, well, Jesus was man, he came up with Christianity. That I can argue. If you want to argue that you believe that Jesus was just a man, even though the resurrection has been proven, there are eyewitnesses of the resurrection that were documented in that time, over 300 different witnesses. Body has not been found. And not only that, Jesus predicted that he would die and that he would be raised from the dead. There's no other prophet that has ever predicted that. You could say Allah, you could say Buddha, you could say Confucius. A lot of them never even claimed to be God. And the thing about them, even when they talk about Jesus, they don't even dismiss Jesus. It's like they want Jesus in their camp. They say, no, Jesus was a good man. He was a good teacher. He was one of us. He was one of the many prophets of God. But Jesus never did that with them. He never said, yeah, I'm in the same boat that they're in. We're all together. Jesus excluded them. And he said, no, I'm not just a good prophet. I'm not just one of the good teachers like Allah and Muhammad. I am God. And besides me, there is no other God. So when you have another religion that comes along, like the Muslims, who say, we believe in Jesus and he was a good prophet, just like, Allah, but that's disingenuous, because the man said he was God and he said he was the only God. And he said that he would die and then he would raise from the dead. And according to all history, he accomplished that. But you can't look at someone who claims to be God and is not God and say that he was a good man. He is either a liar, a lunatic who thought he was God or he was God. But you can't, but they're trying to play all their cards safely and they're trying to incorporate him. And that's where Jesus says, no, I'm going to separate myself from the pack. And you're not going to be allowed to include me. They've done that. But Jesus said, I never said that. It's disingenuous. A true person in another religion would say that either Jesus was God or he was a liar. He wasn't just a good prophet. He wasn't just a good teacher. Any man, would you agree, that says I'm God and is not a good person. He's a lunatic or he's a liar. And so the Muslims have no stance on that. It's disingenuous for them to say he was a good teacher. And so the long answer to your question, why so many religions, it's because of man. And why so many books?
From them being told no.
Right. And super egos. And so, and then, no one ever talks about cults. No one asks why so many cults, but it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. And so it's just men starting any religion that's going to be started 2,000 years after the original, to me, is a red flag. It's not something I want to put my family into. And so there's a website on the internet. I don't know if it's still up or not, but it existed many years. And it just said, say no to religion. And I think that's our stance. We are not into religion. We understand that religion is corrupt. People say, all the wars over the history of time have been started by religions. Yeah, but it's men behind those religions. In Ireland, it was the Catholics blowing up the Protestants, and the Protestants, that war went on in Ireland for years. And they were both claiming to be Christians, except one was Catholic, started by Emperor Constantine in 300 AD, 300 years after Christianity. And then you have the Protestants that were following behind Martin Luther in the Reformation. But they're both just religious. Religious people killing each other. I've never had a desire to go down the street and kill someone because they were in a different religion. Right. And if you look at Israel, they have allowed Palestinians to live in peace in Israel. They have no desire to kill other people because they're a different religion. So when people say, I don't want to have anything to do with religion because religion is behind all the wars, yeah, they're right. So don't be involved in religion. Don't follow a religion that a man created in 1897. Don't follow a religion that a man created in 1842. Don't follow a religion that was started in 600 years after Christ. Don't follow in these religions. Go back to the source. Go back to the source. Christianity, 33 AD, started by Jesus Christ, and it was uncorrupted. That's the long answer.
Here's a question that I often get, and it's why does God allow evil or injustices?
Well, that is a pretty hot topic question. If we each got $1 for every time we've been asked as Christians, why does God allow evil in the world? I think we'd be filming this podcast from our condos in Palm Beach, Florida, or something like that, because it's probably the most asked question
Mhm.
ever, I think.